two, three.
The air power teaming system is a loyal wingman's built to fly alongside and fight alongside other air power teaming assets.
It's
Hey,
not
yo,
only
Tom, don't you think
autonomous in
these
its
drones are
capability.
sick, dude? Yo, man. This is sick, dude. What do you think about it?
You know what, Josh? I do agree with you. These drones do look pretty cool, man. But there's a little more to it than just that. Let me tell you about it, eh?
Alright, Josh. I'll please you with some facts about drone warfare.
Take a wild guess at who has the most drones.
USA?
Correct! USA, baby.
Yeah, it's not even close.
America's got over 1,000 drones, and other countries are struggling to get even 100 drones going.
Yeah, drones have been growing at an exponential rate over the years, and drone strikes have also been dramatically increasing.
Especially once Trump became president. Oh man, if you look at the graph, drone strikes for when Obama was president compared to when Trump was president, it's a big difference. Currently, there have been over 14,000 drone strikes in those areas, like in total. Total deaths, around 8,500 to 16,000. Those who are innocent, there have been around 1,000 to 2,000 of those who are innocent people, and almost 300 to 500 of those innocents were children. Alright, so we have two main arguments for the issue of drone warfare. The argument for it, its biggest points are: one, it does a good job in limiting insurgent movements and terrorist activity. Two, with increased accuracy of drones as opposed to fighter jets, there's a decreased risk in potential civilian casualties and other collateral damage that may happen. And then third, drones are more flexible in what they can and can't do as opposed to a typical fighter jet. And they're not only much cheaper to deploy, especially in large groups, they're also cheaper to make as opposed to the traditional fighter jets. But then we go to the other spectrum, the argument against drone warfare. So his first point is, drones, instead of limiting conflicts and limiting the area where all this fighting is happening, it's actually expanding it out farther. Because drones have since the drones increase in accuracy, it makes military leaders do riskier attacks in places where civilian casualties could be higher. And then finally, the ends never justifies the means. Innocent civilians are dying in these drone attacks. So, can we really justify drone strikes if a solid amount of innocent people are still dying? Alright, so the church's view, I'm just gonna give you this right off the get-go. They're not fully against it, but they're not fully for it. They're in that middle ground, but between medium and fully against it. They're somewhere in between there. They do believe that it can be moral because, well, I mean, you're putting less people's lives at stake because you don't have the pilots in the fighter jets. So that's good. But there is more immoral than moral currently in drone warfare's current state right now, because the US government is definitely withholding some statistics on drone warfare. Like the stats I just gave you a few minutes ago, they're probably really deflated numbers. They're probably deflated because if they're high, then US citizens would kind of question the morality of these drone strikes.
Yeah, so increasing transparency would definitely help. And also, I have this quote from Archbishop Silvano Tomasi, and I quote, "Drones, or any autonomous systems, lack the ability to make moral judgments over life and death, respect human rights and their dignity, and comply with the principle of humanity." End quote.
So why is this really important? Well, because if
technology were to continue to advance, eventually, we won't even need those drone pilots anymore. We can just program the drones to do this, do that, or do whatever, all on its own. And that's when it gets really dangerous. The drones will do only what it's told to do. There's no human behind the wheel anymore. The drones can't make them. They can't make the moral decisions. They don't have a human dignity and soul, so they can't respect the human dignity of an actual person.
And then the church adds one more thing about, since it decreases the risk of casualties for one side, does it make war more tempting?
Like violence more tempting? Or is it gonna limit conflicts? Alright, Tom, so after all that info you gave me, like, what do you think personally about all this drone warfare stuff?
Alright, so you want to hear my personal opinion on this. Okay. Well,
Sonny boy, buckle up, this is gonna be a wild ride.
so to start off, I agree with the church.
That currently drone warfare is really just not in a great spot right now. And I think part of it definitely has to do with our technology, but also definitely our government too. You've got more transparency and stuff.
We'll talk about a little bit of Thomas Aquinas and self-defense. So we know that Thomas Aquinas said that we can't be the attackers, or else self-defense kind of isn't justified. That's key. But the issue is the United States is trying to include these imminent threats or anticipated acts of terrorism as part of the self-defense.
So essentially, if there's an imminent threat, they're trying to justify attacking them even though they haven't done anything to us yet.
And we really have to keep in mind this idea of proportionality here.
Which is huge because, I mean, judging from the stats that I gave you earlier in the video, you know, the ratio between combatant deaths and civilian deaths, pretty good. A lot more combatants were killed as compared to civilians. But the issue is, 1,000 to 2,000 civilians is still a lot of civilians. And so does that really justify the drone strikes? That idea of ends never justify the means is huge because, let's be real with ourselves, it is near impossible to fight a war without killing innocent civilians. So does that mean that a just war is never possible? That's where I'm on rocky ground here. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not entirely sure what to think of that, because maybe we can tie in the double effect of this as well, because the intent, like the bombings of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the intent is good. The intent is it's kind of like self-defense against the enemy combatants, and the undesired consequence is us killing civilians. Okay. You know what? I'll give you this one. Okay, I like this. Your philosophical talks, for once, they were actually kind of interesting. Okay. Yeah, I kind of do feel a little iffy on all this drone stuff now that you told me all of this. Do you think, like, what can we do now? Is there anything that we can do?
Alright, so Josh, there's not much we can really do right now. Sure, we can protest. There are some protests going on around the country against drone warfare. We can probably do something about social media, getting our voices out there. A reform that the church was talking about in Archbishop Tomasi's letter was to train these drone pilots more and put them into situations where they have to make tough moral decisions, because when that time comes, they'll be able to weigh the good and the bad better and probably make a better moral judgment.
A couple of years, a year or two, gotta elect the right officials, dude. Elect the right people who will make change. Hey yo, speaking of elections, dude, presidential election, more debates tonight. Got a president talking and like, now here, let's check it out.
Good evening, citizens of the United States. Today, I will talk to you about the issue of drone warfare. If you elect me to be your next president, I will do everything in my power to be more transparent with you guys, to keep you guys in the loop when I get the scoop. I'll also invest a lot of millions of dollars in advancing our drone programs here in the United States. I will revolutionize the drone industry in not only the US, but also the world, and help lead the world into the future. Thank you.
You know, this guy's pretty convincing. You know, like, I kind of like this guy. Maybe I might elect him to help us with these drone warfare issues. Maybe clean up things a little bit, eh? Not too bad. 100%.
Thanks for watching.
What a wonderful world.